Good afternoon. Peg Larson from the Capitol again this week. A few things have been going on, and I know that John is going to show you some video of part of Senator Uyghur's or Chair Uyghur's hearing this morning. Two senators have asked for an increase on the formula, and you'll be able to see that actual discussion, and everything's kind of being laid over for possible inclusion in his omnibus bill.
We know that the districts that are around us, I know Katie McGuire is here from Osceola School District. They have always said, and I, in my years as a school board member as well, on the Hennepin School District, is we need 2%, period, to even just do what we were doing from the year before. But if you're looking at the salaries and the increase in insurance, we need to start moving those percentages up in the per pupil unit. Plus, it actually gets us back to equalizing our fair share in what we need to do for students in the state of Minnesota, and reminds us of the Minnesota Constitution that Eric Naumann held up for us 2 years ago. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it over to Senator Clausen.
Senator Clausen. Well, good morning, Chairman Uyghur and committee members, and thank you for the opportunity to introduce Senate File 541, which is a proposal to increase the general education formula for the state. There are actually two main provisions. The first provides for a basic revenue increase of 4% for 2016 and 4% again for 2017. The second provision provides for fiscal 2018 and beyond that the basic revenue allocation is increased 1% plus the percentage change in the consumer price index. As Senator Hoffman has pointed out, the Minnesota Constitution specifically states the obligation of the state to fund K-12 education. But it also has an obligation to fund public schools adequately and equitably. Only adequate and predictable funding for public education can there be equitable educational opportunities for every student in our state. State pupil funding in Minnesota was significantly above the national average in the mid-1990s before beginning a long-term decline. In fact, there were many years in the 1990s Minnesota was in the top 5 of all states for per pupil spending. In 2008 marked a turning point for Minnesota. For the first time in history, Minnesota fell at or below the national average in per pupil spending. This trend has continued with studies showing Minnesota currently the 24th state in K-12 educational investment as reported by federal government statistics. As the state's financial support for the K-12 public school system has declined, districts have turned to voter-approved property tax levy referendums for operating revenue. Senate File 541 attempts to shift public education funding back to the state and away from local levies. Local levies should not be used as a replacement for state-appropriated operating per pupil funding. Commissioner Casilius, in her presentation last week to this committee, indicated there are Minnesota school districts with reserve funds of 20 to 30%. This is due to unpredictable state funding, leaving several property wealth poor districts or districts having difficulty passing levy referendums no choice but to build up reserve funds to avoid statutory operating debt. These reserve funds would be more appropriately allocated to the classroom if adequate state funding were available.
I've served on the school board for 8 years, and knowing that we were always struggling on the per pupil unit formula, this really gets us back to where we need to be. And I'm looking forward to the conversation today, and I want to thank Rochester Public Schools for supporting our endeavors here at the state capitol.
The bill that Kim Norton is carrying for us will go in hand with those bills.
The governor has a 1% increase in the K-12 budget and has focused really heavily in the area of early childhood and preschool. I think listening to folks back home and talking to our school district and other school districts in the area, there's concern that any sort of moving too quickly with early childhood, particularly as it links to our school system, will be problematic because of space issues. And certainly we're just moving that all-day K into place right now. So I think it feels a little overwhelming to many. So I'm hoping that with this forecast coming out, that we could maybe urge the governor up. I put a bill in for a 2% increase, and certainly there are other bills in the Senate in particular for 3% and 4% increases. I think that's a little unrealistic. So I'm hopeful that maybe that 2% increase could be realized, actualized, and maybe we can make some modifications to what I support is access to quality early childhood programs and preschools, but modify that a little bit so we can spread the money to K-12. Tomorrow's a big day. The February forecast will be released, and it will tell us how much money we have to spend or to cut based on that report. So everybody's anxiously awaiting that, and the governor will then renew his bills, and the House and Senate will start putting their serious bills on the table to spend or cut money this year.
But the big news this week is House File 2 that Chair Loon chairs the Education Finance Committee in the House, has House File 2, which is going to be heard on the floor this afternoon. It covers everything with teacher licensure. House File 2 actually has a piece in it that we have in a bill that Representative Quam is carrying, and actually it's the amendment to Representative Quam's bill that says that school districts can use community experts, but they must try to find a teacher who is qualified first. So it's very nice that we have been wrapped into House File 2, and of course we will try to make sure that we are still in there by the time Conference Committee is done. I'm going to read you a little bit of the title of House File 2 because I can't just put it to memory. Okay, it's a bill relating to education, clarifying conditions for teacher licensure and employment, amending alternative teacher licensure, providing for teacher licensure reciprocity with adjoining states, clarifying the license via portfolio option, clarifying the exemption for technical education instructors, clarifying decisions affecting teachers' unrequested leave of absence and teaching assignments, prohibiting school administrators from placing students with ineffective teachers, and clarifying teacher skill examination requirements. At one time, this bill also was dealing with LIFO, and we'll see if that stays in. It's going to be a very interesting discussion. They're guessing it'll be about a 4-hour discussion, but that the House will hold pretty steady so that they have some leverage when they go into Conference Committee with the Senate bill. I hope you have a great weekend.